One of the most exciting releases I have stumbled upon this year, thank you to Mr. Buffalo Staple. If you're not subscribed, wait, hang on, where does the finger point? There? Hang on. There? You. If you're not subscribed to Mr. Buffalo Staple, get out my fucking mentions, bro. If you're not subscribed to Buffalo Staple, keep my wife's name out your goddamn mouth. But yes, this album was recommended by him. It was an album that he said, you know, he feels it's going to be underrated for the year. And I've got to be honest, man, it is definitely that. It's got such a nice vibey atmosphere to it. It's very hazy. It's got that electronic feel to it in the same way that someone like Porter Robinson brings to the table, that kind of like euphoric teen blissfulness that just makes you feel young, and it makes you feel like, you know, you're driving in the night with all your friends and you're just in that carefree moment where nothing else matters. It's also the kind of album that feels like it's progressive in its approach to electronic music as well. There's some really cool textures that come through that makes it feel quite unique compared to your just average, you know, electronic album. And there's some fantastic tunes at the core of these tracks as well. When Everything Is Grey, it's got to be up there with one of my favorite songs of the whole year. This track is so comforting. It's so cushiony, you know, the way it just kind of hugs you in such a cute way. But also the vocals are just so perfectly matched with the instrumental. It is just such a fantastic song. He's got a tone to his voice as well that reminds me of some of like the emo, rap, pop artists at the moment. I'm thinking of your Breakenses, I'm thinking of your Arieses, that kind of style to his vocals that I think appeals to me quite a bit, because I'm a fan of both of those artists, and there's plenty of other artists in this lane too that I feel like are really occupying that very American accent pop music at the moment that reminds you of some like boy band type stuff, but somehow it ends up not feeling as cheesy as your typical boy bands. I'm feeling like some James Ivy as well to this guy's voice too. If you've not listened to any James Ivy, I only stumbled upon him recently too, but another artist that I feel like Jaron is representing at the moment. And even if none of those comparisons appeal to you at all, and you're watching this video and you're like, nah, Ryan, like you're name dropping some really whack artists right now, you're name dropping some shite artists right now, I don't want to hear this. Well, the album doesn't necessarily fall into that category the whole way through. I just think there are elements of his vocals that remind me of that. But you hit a track like Death Spirit and somehow you've ended up on some kind of glitchy, messy electronic track that's so, you know, spastic in a way that it just is all over the place and kind of reminds you more of something like maybe 100 Gex would do with their kind of really over the top smattering of sounds that clash together. Or even at points reminding me of some like wonky music as well. 743 Aether, the sound design on that track, by the way, is stellar. For such an unknown small artist to have this kind of sound design is brilliant to me, and I'm just a sucker for this kind of stuff when it comes to electronic music. You know, so anything that's like, you know, like really detailed in a Nicholas Jar way, I'm all over it, man. But also the wonky vibes come through a lot on this one as well, where like the crashing, like clashing, smashing glaciers that just kind of break together and, you know, completely collide into one another. Reminds me of something like Rusty, which is a weird comparison to make because, you know, most of the album doesn't really sound like that. But I'm just thinking of like the Rusty 2011 Glass Swords album cover. You've got those two huge, you know, pythons on the album cover. They're not pythons, but they're, you know what I mean, they're glass swords, and they clash together and they break and they smash, and it just feels like that. The album cover turned into a song. Only for a Moment is just an absolute smash again of explosive ideas colliding with one another. It is such a creative tune. I feel like he's really mastered the elements of what he's going for across this album. He has such a variety of ways of expressing it as well, and it all feels really emotive. Like, you don't necessarily always need those really super mellow vocal moments that he does bring to the table, to really convey the emotions that he's going for, because tracks like Only for a Moment can convey it through the music, which is what I really like about this album. And that's another reason why I would compare it to Porter Robinson too, with his Nurture album, which felt the exact same. Like, you were feeling the emotions through the music that he was presenting, and not necessarily through the vocals. And if you're able to do that, particularly with electronic music, I don't really feel like people understand how difficult that can be, because a lot of emotive music can often be, you know, through, I guess, other instruments. You know, you can get it through a guitar, you can get it through a piano, you can get it through a harp, you can get through all kinds of instruments, but a lot of people don't tend to feel like you get that through electronic. But if you can do it, I think that's an incredibly great achievement. I Can Be Myself With You has some drum and bass textures, which I really like. I'm a big fan of drum and bass, as you should know on this channel already. I do feel like the repeated refrain of I Can Be Myself With You maybe could have been expanded a bit more. Maybe some more lyrical ideas could have come through, just to add a bit more to the emotive feel. I feel like it has a lot of power behind it, but when you hear it over and over again, I felt like he could probably have added some newer lyrics to freshen it up. And why is 222 or why is 222? Man, that two-step coming through though, oh wow, love me some two-step. Again, as you should know if you're following me on this channel, I love me some two-step. The Now Never takes a collision of electronic ideas I was telling you about before and completely distorts it to no fucking end. I mean, this track is just noisy as hell. It's an absolute wall of sound crashing together. It even reminds me of some other artists in the moment that are doing similar things, like Delete Zeke, who is an artist that dropped an album, I think it was last year, wasn't it? It was pretty cool. Not the biggest fan of it, but it reminds me of, you know, musically, it reminds me similarly of that. And Loving Every Single Way, gotta mention this one. This closes out the album. This is a fantastic closer. One of the tracks that really conveys the power through emotions in the lyrics and the way he's singing. As I've already said, he does a good job of doing this through the music and the vocals as well. But this track really is more of the lyrics as well, which I really like. Yeah, this track is fantastic. The way he presents it is so good. How am I supposed to give it everything when every step sends me spiraling? All I know is that I can't hold back this time, which I think is a fantastic line there as well. Just sort of like the idea of not giving up, even though that he feels as though everything he tries just sends him spiraling, but also he knows that he just can't hold back. He can't hold back this time. He has to really go for it, which I really appreciate. Yeah, it's a great track, and yeah, just such a good album, just such a surprise album too. It is an album that I think appeals to such a wide variety of fans at the moment in music. I mean, all the name drops throughout this review really highlight that, and he is unique in his own right too. I'm only saying these names to kind of highlight how, you know, I guess how influenced he is, but also he's turning his influences into something that makes it feel like his own. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it feels unique to him as well. It's not like it's totally ripping off other artists or anything like that. To me anyway, I don't feel that way. I think this is really good. I have such a good time with it. I feel like there's a lot of potential in what he's doing too, and a lot of potential for growth, and a wide variety of music fans could really get on board with this too. So yeah, really impressed with this. I'm going 8.5. It's one of my favorite albums of the year. So hopefully, if you haven't heard it, you can check it out, and hopefully you will agree with me. If you don't though, tell me why in the comments, why you don't agree with me. And that's it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good day. Check out my Patreon if you haven't already as well. And goodbye.